name's Jenny Miller. I'm the Domestic Abuse Service Manager at Rochdale Connections Trust, and I'm here today with Sarah. So, hello, Sarah.
Hello.
So, tell me what makes Sarah. What do you like doing?
I love travelling. I like yoga and exercise generally. Walking, but not today, obviously. And reading.
Okay. Good books, bad books?
A mixture, actually, yeah. Fiction and non-fiction.
Okay, so very broad-minded then.
Yes.
Thank you for coming here today anyway, but what's your story about? What happened?
I was in a relationship that was abusive. My ex-partner hit me often. So there was a lot of violence, but also a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of gaslighting, manipulation, financial abuse. I didn't realise, but now when I look back at the bank statements, he was always, when he went to the shop, double doing on my card. Right. He had no money, so I was supporting him. So, yeah, kind of, in terms of the abuse, it ticked every single box.
So, you said you supported him, so was you working? Was he working?
Yeah, I used to have a really good job. I was a sales manager for a big travel company when I met him. And I ended up having to resign, really, because of me mental health. Okay, so that kind of sounds like that must have been really tough because it were a job you loved. Yes, yeah.
Did you feel like at that time you had support from work or not?
No, quite the opposite, unfortunately.
Was that because you didn't kind of tell them, or was that because they didn't really want to know?
No. I told the manager at Leeds, a woman, a couple of months later, she kind of blackmailed me with a disciplinary.
Oh my goodness, no.
Unless I moved to a different office and a different role.
Right. So, didn't like you then?
I think she'd already had some trouble with a previous staff member who'd only been with the company a short time. So she'd kind of, I suppose, felt quite drained by this staff member who'd ended up, leaving. But it had gone on for a long time. So they'd give him a lot of latitude. He was drinking and he had a toxic relationship. And I'd been with the company 20 years. And I think she just decided that she wasn't going to, I'd not asked for support, by the way, but I think she decided that for her own benefit, she was just going to get rid of me.
Right, and how did that make you feel?
Well...
Not good.
You can imagine, can't you?
Yeah,
I think more than anything, it was leaving all my friends.
Yeah.
Because they had quite a good support network at work. And obviously it was in Leeds, but then I was in Manchester with a completely new team who I didn't know, who weren't that welcoming. And so I think also as well, I knew that the rumour mill
it started.
Were aware, that it was, I'd come under a cloud, shall I say. So I think in terms of my self-esteem, it was, a huge blow.
Okay. Did you try and seek help from, I don't know, your GP or anything like that?
I did actually tell my GP. Yeah. The ex-partner came with me to the doctors though and was outside, standing very close.
Right. Oh, so possibly
I wasn't 100% sure. It was quite nerve-wracking.
Right. So you didn't feel like you could divulge?
I told her some, not everything.
Yeah.
I did actually tell her, and she was very good. In fact, she's been amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. We like to hear that.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, clap to my GP if you get me.
Very good. So, what happened next then? So you was in Manchester, you didn't really fit in, you felt as though things wasn't really, you didn't have that support network around you anymore.
No, and it was a new role, which I gave everything, if you get me. I thought, well, at least, I'm here now, make the best of it, kind of. But then, of course, I'd only been there about 4 months and COVID.
the dreaded COVID hit.
Yeah. So even though things were difficult at work, I was making a really good go of it. And the boss had actually said, "Can I have a word, Sarah?" And you know, when you think, especially given the background, I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done? Is it, is he going to get rid of me?" Bless him. I liked the manager, and he said, "You're doing a really good job, Sarah." I think he knew. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was actually making a go of it, if you get me.
I do.
And at least I was quite well thought of at work, if you get me. I was quite good at my job. Mm-hmm. So it gave me, a bit of self-esteem back.
Yeah.
And then, of course, COVID, and that was it. It was work from home. Mm. So the ex-partner used to sit on the sofa listening to me working. Mm. And I said, you go home. No.
Right.
And that was when it began really to really kind of ramp up. It'd been violent already, but it just escalated. And I suppose there was no escape.
What do you think he was what was he trying to look for in, just sitting there for hours on end while you was working and talking to complete strangers?
Ammunition, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because then after he'd talk about how, try and criticise. I suspect that all along was trying to get me to lose my job or leave my job.
Got you.
I think he was jealous. I was on about 50 grand a year, and I don't think he liked it because he didn't have. But I was happy to share, if you get me. And I don't really understand people like that. But yeah, I actually think that he was intentionally making things difficult.
Right.
Because quite a few times he hit me in the face, and I had to go into work with a black eye.
Yeah.
Which is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was pleased when I handed my notice in.
Right.
That was in the July.
So what? You say you handed your notice in. Was that just because you just couldn't cope with this anymore?
Yeah, I think I just was that traumatised.
Yeah.
I felt I just couldn't continue.
Yeah.
And I think also I worried that because of what had happened previously, that if I wasn't doing a good job, that they'd try and get rid of me. So I and that may or may not be true, given the gaslighting and the belittling and the screaming and the shouting.
Yeah.
I could have just been, paranoid.
Yeah.
But so I left as well, thinking before they pushed me.
I'll go.
I couldn't have stood the indignity of it.
So what was you feeling at that time? I mean, it's pretty obvious that you were feeling very low.
Yeah. Alan had managed to switch. He was very good at that. And he'd managed to switch so that the police had arrested me. They'd not charged me, but on top of him attacking me, he tried to rape me, and I defended myself. And he managed to switch it so that I got arrested.
Right.
And I can't tell you how traumatising the whole experience was. Not just him trying to rape me, but then the police, my ex-partner, nearly got through the front door. So I'd hurt him with the scissors, and then I managed to get him to leave because I said I was going to call the police. And I'd locked the door, and then he'd almost gained entry, and I was upstairs literally hiding under the duvet shaking.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, I'd fallen asleep, and then the next thing, the police were banging down the door.
Yeah. What happened then?
They arrested me.
For what?
Section 18 wounding.
Okay. So what happened from that?
Nothing. I mean, I wasn't charged, but I can't tell you, I think it just... I couldn't think straight.
Yeah. So you're going through this horrendous kind of personal work issue. You know, you've had to give up the one thing you're good at and you liked, and you've got this kind of toxic relationship, if that's probably an understatement by looking at you here now. How did you move on from there? What was you thinking? What was you processing?
I don't think I was thinking.
Okay.
I was just surviving.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time I couldn't remember a lot of his violence.
Okay.
So that was an issue.
Yeah.
That still, you know, is an issue, if you get me.
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like I was just surviving. And for a long time, I felt like I was looking upon my life from a distance.
Yeah.
Like I was a bit out of it, really.
Yeah.
But I gave up obviously handed in my notice. And then I didn't work again for 12 months.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did that impact you kind of financially? Was you still in the relationship with this guy or trying to get out of the relationship?
On and off, yeah. But of course then I wasn't working, was I? Other people weren't reflecting any worth.
Yes.
So all I had was one voice, really. You know, that's where it had become, hadn't it? We'd whittled down, if you get me, to one voice that, honestly, he went on and on and on and on and on, like raging, belittling, cruel, nasty words. And in the end, you can actually hear it in your own head. All the time you do something and you can hear that voice going, you're shit at that anyway. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
And it's like an ever-present put down.
So you had literally no kind of support, validation that you're all right, you know, you just had somebody telling you you're not all right.
Yeah.
And you're not good enough.
Yeah.
So the impact on that, on your well-being, mental health?
I'm amazed I'm still sat here, frankly.
Are.
Yes.
You are.
Yes, indeed.
So
indeed.
What changed it then? What moved it to the next bit?
The last assault was in June of last year, and I gave a statement to the police. Mm-hmm. And then I decided, I mean, you know, I love the optimism. I decided I wasn't going to be ill anymore. Okay. So I got a job, so I'm a civil servant now. I mean, it was 21 hours at the time. I really, really struggled. I've got to say. There were tears and the like, and, you know, I'm surprised I managed to actually hold the job down.
Yeah.
I did reduce the hours to 16, which is what I do now.
Right.
But it had quite a big impact on my self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I think was kind of the start of building back Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah, so even though it was really difficult, don't forget I was talking to other people. I was doing a job. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And I think I could see light at the end of the tunnel.
Good. It's always good to have light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
So what else did you do?
I also got a referral to here, RCT.
Okay.
And I think that was when I was at a particularly low ebb. There'd been an incident with the ex-partner, even though he was on bail. He come round and was, you know, threatening me. I tried to get, out of the house. It's a mortgage property. And I tried to get a place in a refuge. And I talked to Women's Aid over the course of about 2 or 3 days. And I'd spoken to loads of different people, housing, and oh God, it was a minefield. And in the end, I talked to Women's Aid, and we did the dash questions, which always, you know, are really upsetting. And then she said, So that'll be £400 a week for this place. And because you're working, yeah. And I think it just, I felt like I'd been sent round and round the houses. The police were like, why don't you just move?
Yeah.
And I'd told them as well that I'd been led to believe that my ex-partner had cameras stroke listening devices either still or had them in the house.
Yeah.
Psychologically, it was obviously a huge thing. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting in my car when I realised, with music on, just crying because I didn't want to sit in the house.
Yeah. Very invasive.
Hideous. Absolutely, like nails scratching on the wall psychologically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, the police had referred me to Birch Hill.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, without telling me. I.e., we don't believe you, we think you're paranoid. Luckily, the lovely occupational therapist at Birch Hill wrote me a letter, which is very kind of her. I think she felt quite bad that they'd summoned me to Birch Hill, and when I arrived, I thought they were just going to help me, if you get me. I'd not twigged. I knew that the police had referred me, and obviously I was angry about that, but I thought, well, I'll go because they might be able to offer me some help.
Yeah.
And when I arrived, her and the nurse had to explain gently that actually all they were there for was to ascertain if I was having a psychotic episode.
Right.
And they couldn't offer me any help or assistance.
Right.
So we did the assessment, which she thankfully made very quick because she could tell I wasn't paranoid or having a psychotic episode. I was just traumatised.
Yeah.
And she wrote me a lovely letter anyway later and suggested coming to you guys.
Cool. Good.
Yeah, which was good actually. I mean, the first time I came, I didn't feel able to stay, if you get me. We just had a chat and I went, but I came the next week. It was just really nice to, I suppose, be around people, but also to be around people who I didn't have to explain to. I remember coming in once, and then one of the ladies said, are you all right, Sarah? And I went, no, I'm shit. But I think it was just really nice just to be actually, when people ask you, are you all right?
They're not really
interested. They definitely don't want my tale either, do they? I mean, dearie me, it's not for polite conversation, is it? Certainly that's how my family are, if you get me.
I do.
I'm not saying all my friends, but, a lot of them I wouldn't open up to and share.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been, it's been nice just to have people who, without having to go into any detail, which we don't necessarily, but that, understand.
Yeah, and I think it's having that space, isn't it, to be you without having to explain who you are all the time.
Yeah, and without having to pretend that you are okay, if you get me.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I think that's quite draining.
So, where are we going from here?
I'm not quite yet, if you get me. Still a little bit of healing to do, but this year I'm going to set up my own business in travel.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, just because it will be from home, I'm hoping to teach some yoga classes as well. Not necessarily on a commercial basis, if you get me. But I think yoga can be very helpful for people suffering from trauma. Mm-hmm. Because obviously it encourages the self and awareness of self and self-belief. So it'd be nice to get a regular class to teach. And I think I might also, I booked it actually a couple of nights ago, do the Zumba teacher as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like a bit of Zumba.
Exciting.
Yeah, so it is actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to be careful just to not overwhelm. I'm a bit guilty of when I have a good couple of days, I do think, oh, it's all over. Do you know what I mean? And then, you know, the wagon wheel gets stuck in a rut again.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I have to be a bit careful, because I have been guilty of, I'll sign up for this and you know what I mean? And then, oh dear.
So it's baby steps rather than Sarah's normal steps.
Yes.
Back Sarah's normal
steps. That's
Got
right.
you.
But I feel like maybe we're on toddler steps.
Okay. That's
Yeah, exactly.
So if you was to say, if this hadn't have happened to you, if this kind of episode, this relationship, this
hell
hadn't happened to you, what do you think would have been you going forward?
I think I'd still be working at the same company, which, don't get me wrong, would have been good. But I had toyed with doing something along the same lines that I'm gonna do.
Okay.
So I've decided to take it. I mean, there's not many positives to take from it, but I've decided to take it as a positive, because I don't think without, you know, this hell, I would have necessarily left. I'm not sure I'd have had the guts to leave a 50 grand job that I loved.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, really, because sometimes you can kind of think about what would have happened if I hadn't done that, but actually the Sarah in front of me today is because of that. You know what you've been through is the way forward for you.
Yeah.
With a lot more kind of awareness.
Yes.
Knowledge.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and probably a lot more strength than Sarah back then had.
Yes, without knowing it, if you get me. So I didn't know that I perhaps needed to do some work on me. Yes, I think in the end I will be a better version of original Sarah, if you get me.
You know, there was nothing wrong with the old Sarah, but
No.
anything going forward with new knowledge and new experiences and new vigour is you know, it's only going to be for your benefit in the end.
Yes, and I think also, like many people, not necessarily in domestic violence or domestic abuse, but when you've had a tragedy or when, you know, you feel like there's all broken bits of you, I think on the rebuild, do you know, really you've got an opportunity to make some changes for the good. So, yeah, I do think that, you know, in fact, you know, that, not that I'm grateful, God, I mean, imagine that statement, but that I take the positive from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you came across somebody who was going through what you've been through, would there be any pearls of wisdom or advice or just support you could give that person?
I mean, they wouldn't listen, but I'd say run as fast as you can.
You never know, somebody might. Being in Rochdale, do you think there's any part of Rochdale what's helped you? Any of the services? You said your GPs help you. You know, is there anything about Rochdale what's helped you?
Yeah, I did have 2 IDVAs.
Okay.
Yeah, who were amazing, actually. I don't know what I'd have done without them.
So an independent domestic violence advocate or advisor is an IDVA. They are amazing.
Yes, and I think I did have a bloke, and no, he wasn't even listening, if you get me. So, but the 2 ladies I've worked with have been like amazing. I was so glad to have them. Good.
So if you could describe yourself now, or if there's anybody around you who's a good support of you, whether family, friends, or whatever, how would they describe you, or how would you describe you now?
I mean, on a good day, I'd say maybe a bit quirky, I think very optimistic. I think I'm enduringly optimistic.
Good.
And I think, you know, perhaps sometimes it's a blessing and a curse. A blessing because it's pulled me through this experience. But sometimes it was a curse in terms of hope towards change and in the relationship.
Got you. Would you consider yourself strong?
Yes.
Good. And is there anybody, this is the last question, but is there anybody, either a Rochdale woman or anybody worldly woman, who's inspired you?
Dolly Parton.
Okay. No, I've listened to Dolly a few times, and there is definitely
Yeah.
a kick-ass girl in there.
Yeah, there is. I think she just plays it, doesn't she? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, to finish off, I mean, I'm so grateful that you've done this, and it's been very open and frank of you. But is anything you want to pass on to anybody who's going to listen to this?
Yeah. If you are experiencing domestic abuse, one thing that I wish I had done and didn't, but probably because of mental health and trauma, is to try and keep a record of what's going on. Somewhere safe, somewhere secret, somewhere.
Yeah.
And you may be very grateful for it down the road.
That's really sound advice, that. So thank you very much. Thank you for agreeing to do this, and
Thank you.
good luck in everything you do.
Thank you, Jenny.